My name is Grace Prosper, and this is my story. I am a firstborn in a family of three, raised by a single mother who died when I was at the age of 13. So when my mom died, our grandmother took over in raising us. And since she was not working, life was not easy at all. I remember we used to eat on garbages. My brother would go and do housework so that he would get us food. Even going to school was not an easy journey. I finished my class 8, and because of basically when my mom passed us at the age of 13, it really broke me. I was so stressed. It really affected my education. Even though I was a very bright student, it affected my education in a way that I did not pass very well my class 8. I got 251 marks. So after that, I was not sure about my secondary education because it was clear my grandmother was not working. But God, through his own miraculous ways, used my principal. Actually, how it happened is I was called to this private school and I didn't have a means to go. So one of my friends was like, oh, my mom wants me to go to a day school. There's a school called Committee Secondary, and this girl did not want to go to that school. And I was like, okay, fine. There is a school that I've been admitted to, and since I don't have school fees and I don't have hope of joining a high school, how about you take my letter and go with it, get an admission on my behalf? And I told her, okay, all the best, you will employ me. So this girl went to the school with her father, and when the principal saw the letter, she was like, we've been looking for this girl. You see the way God works. This is someone that doesn't know me. When my friend came back, she was like, the principal was like, she's been looking for you and you need to go to the school with your grandmother. So the following morning, we woke up very early in the morning and we went to the school, and the principal, who happened to be the owner of the school, was like, you know what? She told my grandmother, you just need to pay her lunch. We will take care of the school fees. Don't worry about it. Just go get her uniform. She needs to report to school tomorrow. We will get her books and everything. Oh, I was super excited. I was like, oh God, I'm going to go to school. She even recommended us a shop that we can go get the uniform. So my grandmother didn't even have money to get the uniform for me. So when we get to the shop and my grandmother shared the story, the shop owner was like, I will get her a skirt. And then the father to my friend got me a sweater. And, there were some shirts at home that my cousin was previously using. So I was like, yeah, I have complete uniform. So the following morning, I woke up very early. I was so excited to go to school. And that's how I joined high school. So with time, by God's provision, I got some sponsors who were like paying my school fees. And at some point, I boarded. I was going, day home and to school. Principal was like, when I got to Form 3, the principal was like, how about she stays here at school instead of going home because she needs to focus on her education? And I was like, yeah. My grandmother was like, that's okay. So I boarded. At some point in my high school, I started my periods the second term of Form 1. I did not even have sanitary towels. I couldn't afford sanitary towels. And I remember I could use rags, and some days I would mess up my skirt and the students would be laughing at me, what is happening to you? Why are you not taking good care of yourself? And I was like, I wish they knew what I was going through. One of my friends who got really concerned, why am I soiling my skirts? And I shared my story, and she was like, from today, just make sure every time you don't have sanitary towel, just let me know. I'll be providing them. And that's how also God came through for me through my friend. I completed my high school by God's grace. I got a C+. After high school, again, I did not have hope of, joining campus. And my life in high school and primary school, I was so dedicated to God. Actually, I finished my Form 4 a virgin. I was so sold out to God. I loved God with all my heart. I served God with all my heart. So after Form 4, life became very hard. I got into manual jobs. I started working as a house girl in some different houses just to survive. And there are some houses I was so mistreated. I would go work and I'm not allowed even to eat. And I was like, what? And I remember I was being paid 50 shillings. I worked only for 2 weeks. This lady did not even pay me. And remember, I couldn't even eat food in that house. It was basically not easy. Having to work in people's houses as a house girl, it's not an easy task. Especially when you work at houses of people that do not fear God. It's not easy at all. You suffer, you struggle, you're working, but you're stressed. But God carried me through. There was a time after working in there was one good house house that I worked for, and they treated me very well as one of their own. They were believers. And after now leaving that house, I told my grandmother, at this point, I feel like I don't want to work as a house help anymore. So by God's grace, my brother was working in a certain wholesale, and he secured me a place at the wholesale where we worked faithfully until my brother got a scholarship to go study at Kenya Utalii College. And I remember on that day, I stepped in as a mother to take him to school. When I came back, for some reason, that very same day, I got fired. I went home. I was like, now what happens from here? And it happened, one of my friends that saw me working at that wholesale called me and was like, I can't see you in the wholesale anymore. What's happening? And he offered me a receptionist job at their clinic. And I started now working there. Life became a little bit easier because I was being paid better. I worked with them, and it was now I got involved with this guy, actually different guys. And at some point I got pregnant, but I didn't know. And it was during a time whereby I was preparing to go to school. I got a sponsorship, and I raised some funds, and I was just waiting for the reporting date. And it was during that time I fell sick. I didn't know I was pregnant. So I fell sick, and going to the hospital, I was tested of malaria and typhoid, and I was given medication for typhoid. So when I went home, I took my medicine faithfully. The first day, second day, third day, fourth day, I started bleeding so profusely. One of the meds that I was using for typhoid, it's not supposed to be used by pregnant people, but I didn't know. So I started bleeding so profusely, and I was like, okay, maybe this is an abnormal menstruation. So the first day, second day, and it became so bad to a point that I could not walk upright. I was so much in pain just beneath my tummy. It was so painful, such that I could not walk upright. And I didn't even know who to share this with. I wouldn't share this with my grandmother. Well, how do I even start sharing this with her? So one of our family friends, actually, he was very close to my brother, and he happens now, because of my brother, I used to talk with the family. I decided to go to their place, and I shared with that man what is happening, and suspected an abortion, of which I didn't know. So he called my uncle, and my uncle called my aunt, and I was taken to the hospital. And while at the hospital, the doctor was like, we have to do a pregnancy test. They did a pregnancy test, and the doctors were like, you're pregnant and you're losing the pregnancy. It's like you were trying to commit abortion. It's like, what? I didn't know. I was like really shocked. The doctor was like, now we are going to just clean you up. It's already like coming out. We're going to clean you up. You need to get this amount of money, and then we will do the cleanup. We'll recommend you to a gynecologist that's going to help you with that. So when we went outside, my auntie was like, what? You're pregnant? How did you even get pregnant? Everybody was shocked. Like, my aunt was really shocked because I was that innocent girl. Little they know the innocent girl was no longer innocent. My aunt told me, what? Just call the guy responsible. And I was not even sure that that guy was the one responsible. I wasn't sure. So I called him, and he told me I'm not responsible, da 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 da. And he stopped even picking my calls. He told me, get the guy who is responsible for the pregnancy. It's not me. I was really broken. At that point, I felt like I wanted the earth to open up and swallow me alive, because I was like, how do I even face my uncle? How do I even face my grandmother? How do I even explain to the society what exactly happened? I was really, I don't know, like, I felt this is the end of me. This is the end of life. I'm supposed to report to school in 2 weeks. What is this now? So as we were walking with my auntie came home, and she told my uncle about it, and my uncle was really mad at me, was really angry at me. And it's normal. It was understandable, because I'm supposed to go to school, and these are the news they are getting. He really got mad at me. But either way, a parent is a parent. He provided money, and I went back to the hospital the following day, and they washed me, and I came back home now broken. And I remember nobody wanted to relate with me. I received a lot of when I came back, nobody even wanted to speak to me. I was again broken. Nobody wants to relate with you because, you know, you're here. You got pregnant and you've undergone an abortion. I was a friend to no one. It was not easy. It was so painful seeing your own people who do not even want to relate with you, even at home, you know, getting some treatments. I didn't like it and I was so broken and I was so looking forward. When is the day coming and I'll go to Eldoret, you know, to my college? So the day came. I was so excited. I packed up, I left, and I went to Eldoret. Now, this is a young girl, broken, with no friends. No one is there. No one is there to show you love. No one, everybody is judging you, and you're going to a place alone whereby no one knows you. You're going to start a life away from your family. But remember, you've left broken, you've left empty, you've left hurting, and you're going to a new place whereby you don't even know anybody. When I went to Eldoret now, I got an admission. I was living at the hostels and now this is me. A new life started and was still hurting. I was still going through a lot of stress, a lot of pain in my heart, knowing that I don't have anybody who believes in me anymore. Everybody is judging me. So here I am. I decided to live a reckless life. I was looking for love. I was looking for acceptance. I was looking for somebody that can tell me, you know what, Grace, you're still beautiful. You still got life ahead of you. You know, I was looking for that, but it was nowhere to be found. So I started living a reckless life. Every weekend I would go out drinking. I would have sex with men, different men, and I didn't care. But every time I went back at home, at my house, I would sit on my bed and I would be crying, asking myself, what did I just do? I would come back to my senses and then I would ask myself, what did I just do to myself? But anyway, I cry a little tears and move on, like nothing happens. Again, the following weekend, you know, the same. It was the order of the day. I used to do that like it's my new norm, my new life. In 2011, around I believe around October or November, I met this guy. I was walking back home from school. I met this guy. He stopped his car and he was like, hey, you're so beautiful, da 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 da, you know. And this is all I was looking for acceptance, for somebody to tell me that I'm beautiful, for somebody to tell me that they love me. As a vulnerable young girl, I fell for these words, and the guy was like, you know, yeah, I love you, da 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 da. And I got to know that he was married, and I was like, yeah, I don't care whether you're married or not, as long as you love me and you take care of me, and I'm good. So he started taking care of my bills. He would take me out, and yeah, life became now easier. And I remember it was during this time again I started using P2s, and they are very dangerous, they are very harmful. I started taking them and I didn't know that I was destroying myself taking them. I became sick. I started now bleeding profusely, like my periods, I wouldn't say it was periods because I was bleeding throughout. I would put on pads, still mess up my clothes. I would come from the bathroom. As I'm standing there, blood is flowing like water. I went to different gynecologists, but I did not get any solution so it was my new normal again. Bleeding, stop for a few days again, back to bleeding. And I didn't know that now this was signs of fibroids. So we continued this relationship, and I remember during that same year when I was coming for my holidays in December, the guy told me to go for a HIV test. I asked him, why can't we, go together? He said, no, I've gone for my test and I'm good. I became a little bit suspicious. Why is this guy telling me to go for a HIV test? I was like, anyway, it's okay. So when I came home, he even sent me money. He sent me money to go for the test. I went for the test and oh my God, it tested positive. Like the doctor did it 3 times, different kits testing positive. And I was like, what? Anyway, it didn't even I was like, I don't think this doctor is doing it right. So I just blushed it off, assumed like nothing happened. I went home and told my grandmother about it, and my grandmother did not even take it serious either. So I was like, maybe that doctor did not know how to test. So I called the guy called me and asked me, how did it go? I said, it tested positive. And I was like, what? You've killed me with my family, da, da, da. I was like, but I think the doctors did not do it right. So he sounded like, I brought it to him. But later on, years later, I came to know, okay, no, it wasn't from me. So that was 2011. I went back to school in 2012. We continued life like normal with this guy. 2013, I completed my school and came back. Now, when I came back, I was like, no, I need to change my life. I need to go back, to God. I need to get born again. I need to go back to God. I need to, change my lifestyle. So in 2013, 2014, I went back to school and graduated. I told this guy I don't want anything to do with him completely. I told him, don't call me. I've decided to change. Forget about me. I want to change my life. So it's like, okay, if that's what you've decided, that's okay. After graduation, my brother offered me a job. He owned a studio. He offered me a job and I was like, yeah, sure. So I came, was living at the studio. I was sleeping there. And it was again during that time that I met this guy. I fell in love with him. And by the time I realized, I was again pregnant for him. But before I got pregnant, I remember there was this season. You remember the bleeding I talked about? I was still bleeding. So I was vulnerable because this guy was really taking good care of me. I remember there was a day I even fainted and he was the only one who was around me, take me to the hospital. And with time, I kinda fell in love with him. This was the first time that a scan was conducted and the doctor found out that I had fibroids. And she asked me, do you have a baby? Do you have a kid? I was like, no. And the doctors told me, now with your age, chances are actually very minimal for you to give birth because the fibroids are really growing so fast. They are really growing so fast. So it's what will happen here is you might not even be able to give birth. You might not be able even to conceive because chances are really very minimal. The fibroids are growing very fast. When I came from the hospital and now I was like now desperate to get pregnant. So I got involved with this guy and I got pregnant. And when I got pregnant now, at 3 months, I went to the hospital for my antenatal test. And now, okay, of course, when you're going for antenatal, they have to conduct a HIV test. It tested positive, and this time it really hit me so hard. Now this time it hit me so hard. I was like, oh, for real? I'm HIV positive for real? And the doctors are like, yeah, you need to come with your man for the test. So I came back home. I told my man about it and he was so scared. He was so shocked. So we planned the following day. We went for the test. He turned negative while I turned positive. And he was like, I will stand with you. No need to worry. I will stand with you. And the doctor's advice now I needed to start taking ARVs like immediately to protect the baby. So at the same month, I started bleeding. Like the bleeding, I thought now because I'm pregnant, the bleeding is gonna stop. It came back again. Bleeding while you're pregnant. It was very uncomfortable, very uneasy. So you're going through the first trimester of pregnancy and, again, taking ARVs and they are normally very strong and you're bleeding. It was really, really not easy for me. It was very hard for me. At some point, I even almost got depression. So I started bleeding again, go to the hospital, admitted for 2 weeks, discharged, still bleeding. And at around 5 months of pregnancy, again, I started now the water, the baby's water was coming out at 5 months, and I was rushed to the hospital. And I spent the night there. The following morning, a scan was conducted, and the doctors confirmed that I had lost the pregnancy. The baby had died in the womb. I asked now, what happens from here? I was told there is nothing else. We're going to induce labor, and you're going to push a dead baby. Guys, it was painful, very painful. And I remember it was during that time I called when the man, I was the father to the baby that I was carrying. When he came to the hospital, I told him, no, at this point, I don't think there is anything that is putting us together. I've lost the baby. I'm HIV positive. You're HIV negative. How about you just, leave me and move on with your life? Let me die my own death, just move on with your life. And he was like, no, I'm not going to leave you, da 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 da. So he left, and that evening I was booked in for to be induced to push out the baby. And the baby came out after a couple of hours. Then again, I bled so heavily until I turned very pale, and I would hear voices out. It's like I was losing consciousness. It's like I was dying. right there in the hospital. The placenta did not come out, and they were like, I had the doctor say from afar, I think we are losing her. They said, we need to rush her to the theater. So I was taken to the theater. They pulled out the placenta, and I was taken back to the ward. I lost consciousness, and then after a couple of hours, I woke up, and they observed me for a couple of days, and then I was discharged to go back home. So here I am, recovering again from losing my baby, still bleeding, and I was again I was broken. During that period, it was around March. There was this ministry, there was this man of God that had come to Kenya. My spiritual dad, Apostle Moses Miles Kwagala, he had come to Kenya, and my brother was hiring his sound to this church. My brother was going, they were going for a trip at the place of work, and he told the guy and myself, how about you guys take the instrument to the church, make sure it's connected, da 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 da.